Okay, we're live now. We can't back out of this, Dan.
We're live.
We're live.
We're live!
Some people have missed that. All
Welcome,
right.
everyone, to a Wargamers Hangout.
Welcome to Wargamers Hangout number 28. Today's topic, if we can stay on it, staying engaged in the hobby. So I started off actually with an audience participation question, so please feel free to, at any point, chime in, because I'd actually like to hear other people's thoughts on it. Have you ever added a special rule or scenario to a game in order to make it more interesting? And if so, how? Which is to say, set up either ridiculously unfair scenarios or added a weird rule or played a special way just to try and make your game a little more interesting. Dan, have you ever done that?
Yeah, it happened a lot just when I used to work at Mini Wargaming, because I played like 3-4 40K games a week. It was just a lot in the filming and this and that and whatever. And so it was just like when you had like kind of like regulars, like local guys coming, you're just like, well, let's try this time. And you would like skew the points back and forth, and we'd have like, there was one table where it was kind of like an island in the middle, and it was Orcs on Orcs, and it was just like he had like the more mechanized like tanky army, and I had like tons of crazy troops and shooting, and so I just deployed in a big circle around him. And we just fought it out, and it was really funny. It was just kind of like he was just holding out, and I was just like clambering over stuff trying to kill him.
The most interesting games are oftentimes where like stuff just either nothing works, or like your bad models are performing really well, or just like ridiculous things are happening.
Gives opportunity for your other models to shine. Yeah, it's just and it's like you don't really worry about balance. And basically, if you're just playing like more narrative, if you bring a more fluffy army versus another fluffy army, like it's not really changing the rules at all, but it's just it's not caring about the rules, or sometimes even looking at points values, or not caring about balance whatsoever. Because any kind of narrative campaign Mini Wargaming puts out nowadays, that kind of focuses on that.
Mm-hmm.
But like for example, at the like any kind of war machine or any kind of convention where Privateer Press is at, they always bring their cinematic or their big cool tables, and they have their custom rules for those tables, and it's and those aren't really particularly balanced that much, but they're just fun.
Yeah. You're talking about at the cons too, you said? Yeah. No, those are the...
When I was like attacking a fortress, and you were like, you know...
Yeah, when I was playing Karchev, like trying to hold everybody back. No, those are always really interesting. Playing special kinds of scenarios like campaigns are also kind of an interesting way to do it as well. I haven't been able to be invested long enough to do a full campaign, but as somebody who's played a lot of like role-playing games, I definitely see the value of that too, like caring about your characters. And I know Malifaux does that. They'll have actual like campaign tournaments where you're telling a story, and those are always great. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as like, it might be helpful to back up a moment and see what it is that might cause you to lose engagement in a hobby, because sometimes it's because you're burned out, which I think you and I are very familiar with, of specific games, just playing it too much or playing like the same scenarios over again. But what else would you say contributes to risking losing interest or engagement in your hobby?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just repetition. It's just if you're playing the same people over again, or just like the same scenarios, if you're just playing the same army, it's just, for me, it's just like, that's why I've never really gotten to chess, even though I really, really like chess. And I think it's like super competitive and awesome. And there's so many like really, really well balanced. For me, it's just too similar. It's the same pieces every time. And it's the same, I mean, it's not the same strategies at all. It varies incredibly. But when it's a war game, you get to, it just like one day you're bringing this type of army, next day you're bringing that type of army, and that gets really fun. But I think when certain games lend themselves, and I'm going to pick on Privateer Press a little bit, just like their steamroller scenarios, just kind of like they are different, but they just kind of it feels like you're playing the same game over and over again, even though there are different armies. Sometimes it can, especially when you're playing in tournament play, when you have to play like the top tier stuff if you want to play competitively, it can really bog you down. And when your meta is just really focused on the tournament play, it can. That's actually what's happened locally. A lot of us are starting to get into Malifaux just to switch things up, just break the mold a little bit, because we all love wargaming still, but it's just what we loved is just getting a bit too repetitive or boring, especially with their tier lists right now in Privateer Press. I don't know. There's not as much variety on the field, and then again, repetition leads to getting bored.
Yeah. It depends. It depends on what you're going for. If you're trying to really master something, then I've certainly done tournament preps before where I'll just play the same list for like 4 weeks ahead of time over and over and over. And I won't be bored because I have a specific goal in mind. But the idea of always practicing, and that was the issue I had with steamroller scenarios and even like the demos for the new ones where you're like, oh, okay, we're fighting over a rectangle, a circle, and a flag. Got it. Okay, new scenarios. We're fighting over a rectangle, a circle, and a flag. What does this represent again? So, but I mean, that depends on what you're going for, and thankfully, it's not like you're required to play with those. So, now we do have a couple of people, real quick.
Sure. Comments.
William Payne mentions, and Carmine mentions that he loves the armor, or whoever you are loves the armor. Thank you. William says, one thing my group did for a night was make it seem like the board was falling apart. Every turn, the board shrank d6 inches. If a model was outside the new table length, it was killed. Seems pretty kind of...
I've actually done something similar with that, but with War Machine, it was kill box. It was a shrinking kill box. And so there was like...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was like we changed it because it was like, okay, we got to like brawl in the middle. So it was like the rest of your army was okay, but your casters were getting very, very close together. Or actually, here I'm gonna feature this hilarious trophy that I have.
Dan steps over what is presumably all of its dirty clothes to get to the back of the room.
Models everywhere. All right, so this is in fact a wedding topper, and it is Love Machine 2016 first place. So let me go over the rules quickly of Love Machine. It was a War Machine tournament in which we had to bring 2 casters. And so at all times you had 2 casters on the board. But if you lost one of them, Love was broken and you lost. And so you got to make some crazy, weird, awesome, powerful combos with 2 different casters. But you couldn't just like suicide one and keep one back. Like they both had to stay alive. And you got extra battle group points. So it was like normal point size, but because of battle group points, you got more. So it was a bit bigger army, and you played. But the scenarios were like it was just really weird. And a local guy, Mr. Malorian, he's on YouTube. You can check out his channel. He's really funny. But he made one. The first scenario was you're running away to get married, and so it's your two guys were in love, and so you could be from any faction. You could be like Legion and Khador or I don't know, whatever. You didn't have to synergize whatsoever. You know, woman, man, whatever. They're in love. They're running away to get married. So you got control points by running across the whole board and leaving the table edge. You could win the game if both your casters somehow navigated all the way around their army and left the board. That was one way to win. Or just, kill one of their enemy casters. And so when things were going bad, people were just like, run for the edge! I'm losing on attrition. Time to go for it. And it was just really funny. It was super good. Like the second scenario was like they got hitched and they're so in love, they could never at any time be further than 6 inches apart. So you're like beside each other, you're like, okay, I move up and activate. Oh, you're further than 6 inches apart, you lose the game. And so we're kind of leaning, you're like, oh wait, you can't do that. And you're like, okay, I'm like, wait, you have to go around each other. It was like, oh, how do I even do this? And it was just 3 for a loop. And no one knew the rules beforehand. And it was in a tournament, so people are trying to win. And it was just like, oh, okay, this kind of works. And then I can't remember the other scenarios, but the last scenario was they had a baby. And so you took the stats from one and the stats from the other, and you combined them on these basic rules. And then you had to play with your original list with just the one hybrid caster and then play it. And it was one of the most fun tournaments ever. I'm sad that not a lot of people showed up because they're like, it's a silly tournament. But it was like so much fun. And I happened to win, so I mean, I'm sure I had more fun than some others, but it was...
So your unbiased opinion is that it was great. It does sound fun.
Yeah, it was just something different. You didn't really change the rules of the game too much. It was just like a few tweaks here and there, and it felt like very much a different game and like something that you would never encounter again, nor be able to even prepare for, and it really made you, think on the fly. And I think those kind of things really help the hobby, at least in my opinion.
Well, it helps rejuvenate it. I know Who's the Boss is actually one of the more popular tournaments to sign up for at Adepticon, and probably like the other conventions as well, because you do enjoy the randomness. Spell drafts have oftentimes been popular for that reason. I mean, it doesn't have to be a sanctioned fun game. Like, you can do whatever. You said Mr. Malorian made those rules up, though?
Yeah, he made those rules up by himself.
Go him. They have one where you're like running away from marriage?
No, they're in love, Miranda. We believe in true love.
Oh, God. All right. Well, what else have we got here? So someone mentions, no matter how much I try, I just can't get enthused about painting the miniatures. Throw in a weird work schedule, and I just never get to play. So as much as I love playing with painted models, I would argue that playing is probably more important if that is what you enjoy in the game. Like, waiting to paint your models probably isn't. It's a really good way to never get out there and do it. And I don't know.
I go back and forth with painting. Like, I just used to hate painting. Well, I didn't hate it, but it was like, okay, it's a part of the hobby, whatever. But I'm like, I have so many models, it sucks. But I don't know. I've had fun with it recently. Just like painting, it just feels like you just like accomplish a goal, and it's like your stuff on the board. Like, people with no time like hire people to paint their armies. That's cool. But for me, it's just like the fact that it's my paintbrush did all those little strokes and a lot of hours, and it's just something that you've accomplished on the board. As much as I love playing, it's just like the painting has to be a part of it for me.
I like having painted, but the process itself is like, it's hard to get into, and it's something I actually have a problem, like, as just it's like my own personal bad habit. I'm really lazy about wanting to get started on things. And so whenever I'm like thinking about painting a model, I'm like, I have to find all the colors. And of course my house is a disaster all the time. So I'm like, I'd have to like gather stuff up and put it together so that I can prepare to paint and clean off a spot because I have some other project happening around. And like that amount of effort required to start usually just puts me off it. But once I've started, then I can go for a while. I'll paint infantry all day long, actually. It's the special models that I actually oddly get slowed down on. And like, I want them to be really cool, but then I run out of ideas because I've tried to avoid using too many colors because it gets bad. But yeah, as far as that goes, it makes me antsy to paint or to play. And talking about wargaming actually makes me stay interested the most in playing, or just even staying involved at all. Like, I love, Theory Machine, Theory Hammer, like, talking about lists, talking about synergies, talking about mechanics. Like, I love the theory about it a lot, and like that'll get me interested in wanting to like play again. So it's really just about keeping, I guess, in the headspace as I just meander around this topic. Sorry.
Yeah, you have to have like a wargaming buddy. If you're kind of just running it solo, kind of going in, enjoying the community, you have a bunch of friends. But if you don't have like that one person you can like roll ideas off of, it gets too generic, and kind of gets lost in all the rest of busy life. But if you have somebody like, I think this is really cool, and you can like text them, or you have a Facebook group where you can post in and like, bounce ideas off of, like, it can just, I think that can really help keep it more interesting, like you were saying, like you're just talking about it, theorizing.
Oh yeah. One of my, back in the day when I had a bigger meta here, and some more of my closer friends had played War Machine, after game night, we'd actually like go to a restaurant and hang out and just talk about talk about the games we had that night and talk about like new models coming out. Like we would just talk about gaming and
You're such a nerd.
Well, nobody does that with me anymore. I have no friends, so.
Yeah, that's sad. That's like one of my favorite parts of conventions. It's like, we're like, well, we're here. I don't know what else to do. Let's go talk. Let's go whatever. We're still talking about Wargaming.
No, it's like, to be fair, I think for a lot of people who go to conventions, that's probably like the only place they can just talk nonstop about gaming and not be ostracized or told to get back to work or go mow the lawn or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At least I think. Now, we've got some more audience participation, so I want to include them. Let me see here.
Flo wants to know when's the last time you painted all day long, Miranda.
All day long? I don't know. It's been a while. I try to put that business off now. Let me see here. But I remember finishing up Winter Guard, and I painted a bunch of Kayazi, which I was glad for. Kayazi got really good in Mark III. Let me see how much I tried. People who don't shower make me want to stop playing. Well, I mean, that can literally apply to any aspect of your life, so I don't know.
So this one time at Mini Wargaming, they had a tournament when they still had the physical store open, and Owen and I were just like hanging out after work, and the tournament was there. We were thinking of playing in it, but then we we're like, whatever. Let's just like play some StarCraft on the work computers and hang out. And there was one person whose BO was so bad that it not only filled the room, but creeped down the hallway into the offices where Owen and I could smell it. And we're like, what the? It's permeated all the way down here. Those poor people. We're so glad we skipped that tournament.
No.
But in general, I feel like I have run into that less and less lately. I don't know if it's just the people I'm hanging out with, or just luckily in my meta it just doesn't happen. But everyone's pretty good. So I don't know.
All right, fair point. It's hard, right? Because while people should know better, I think if you're dealing with people in that situation, it's probably because they don't know better. And so, like, who's going to... You don't want to be mean.
I know.
You don't want to, like, put up with that either, so...
One good way is before any tournament starts, just have, like, a basic to, like, hey, here's a stick of deodorant. We'll force you to use it if we must. And then just stick it there. And just have that as precedent. And then, you know, if you need it, great. Here you go. It's a little embarrassing, whatever, but I mean, I will admit that I had a time where I was not the best in personal hygiene growing up. This is long ago, like 3 months ago. No. No, but like, I kind of understand, but like it's just you have to go through the embarrassment. You just gotta like encourage people to do better. I don't know. We're off topic, I think. But anyways, it's just.
Well, but that's not like that's about like just making your base normal gaming experience tolerable rather than like more interesting.
Yeah.
And yes, everybody should probably exercise basic hygiene if you're going to go interact with other human beings. It's just nice, and know your own body, obviously. So.
Mm-hmm.
Special rule, no smoking. If you smoke, add 1 dice to your enemy's magic pool.
I
think that should include vaping, Jeff. Sorry.
Vaping.
No vape nation here.
Yeah. I'll get behind that.
Michael Gray says, on topic for a moment, I wish I could play enough that I need to add special rules to keep things fresh. There is definitely that. The time factor is hard, especially if you work full time or if you have a family. Like setting aside time feels like you're taking a lot away from everything else you're doing in life just to have a hobby. But at the same time, hobbies are kind of what help keep you sane and help you, to a degree, personal growth and maintaining friendships and relationships. So it is something that it's an odd trade-off, right? I mean, I guess you're kind of working a lot of hours too, aren't you right now, Dan?
Yeah, I'm working about 60-hour weeks. So not crazy, but close.
Nothing drives me to like the world of fantasy and gaming more than like real life. Like, okay, I've paid all my bills this month. Okay, I've done all this work and I've been to my job and I've put gas in the car and I've bought groceries. It's a lie. I never buy groceries. And yeah, I want to do anything else. That is maddening. Like real life is maddening. So
yeah, wargaming is just kind of like, it's like a good, healthy escape, you know? Because lots of people have escapes from real life, and I feel like wargaming is one of like the better ones, where it's whether you're painting or playing or whatever, assembling, it's just, you know, either you're developing friendships or talent, or, you know, it's just
losing friendships and having like tape measures thrown at you. That occasionally happens, but you learn about people, you know? It's good.
You're not to insult their mother next time.
That's right.
Or do it in a much kinder way. The right intonation is very important.
Get out some aggression. See, I mean, and that's, I know it can be like intimidating for a lot of people as far as getting into wargaming, because there's almost this feeling of responsibility that, you know, you really need to win. Otherwise you might be like, I don't know, incompetent if you don't. But that's also really thrilling, like being able to use your wit and match your wit against your opponents. And, you know, you can remember all the rules, which is admittedly my weakness, but
or like when you're like way down and you're like, I'm going to lose, I made some bad decisions, over, but you're like, but
throw a Hail Mary.
There's still a chance. You're like, come on, guys.
Well, those are exciting, and those are the fun stories that you have at like Applebee's at like 10 o'clock at night with your friends. You're like, yes, that was so amazing. Did you see that? I had to roll a 12. I freaking rolled a 12. It was awesome. And you know, the waitress just looks at you weird, but
no, really, it happened.
No, I'm not. It's a real story.
My glass case, people asking, I got it at IKEA. It was like $60 Canadian, so I'm sure cheaper US wise. But like really, really cheap, pretty easy to put together. I mean, there's really big glass panes, and I put it together myself, even though it recommends 2 people. And I was like holding glass panes with my leg, and I'm like, that's it.
Dan's all, I'm an adult, and like working it.
This was also at 2 a.m. So if I dropped anything, it would make a big noise and wake up all my roommates. They would not be upset. So I just had to focus. But it was like building a really weird like metal model that just doesn't stick together, and you're like trying to hold it together with super glue, and you're like, come on, and you're too lazy to pin it because you don't have a Dremel. And you're like, and then you get it done. That's what that glass case was. But yeah, it's super simple. I don't even have that much stuff in it. I bought it to put all my stuff in it, and then I was reorganizing, and then it just is all on my table right there.
Wow. It's almost as messy as I am.
But yes, IKEA. Great place.
Mandragora, welcome to the program. I'm sure you've been here a while. I'm still going through the chat. Same with Wargamer Online. Welcome if you're still in the chat. Thanks for offering some advice to Tank Challenger, because I wouldn't know what to put in his 40K list. And hi, Flo. How you doing? I hear you're working on commissions. I hear you have some statistics waiting to get painted. Also, let's see here. I've gotten serious about my painting last year, says Ronald Birkin. Been playing since the game came out, but now I got a good amount of my Sigmar and Mercs painted now. Hey. And that's always nice, the feeling of accomplishment. Admittedly, having a unit done and painted is motivation to want to play with them too, because models like 1,000 times better painted.
Yeah, even if they're like half painted, like anything on the model, you're like, oh, this is nice.
If you can't do anything else, do your basing. That gets you super far. I've cheated with that all the time. Basing,
I always do my
base
basing
coats. Okay.
Oh, just base coat it. I
Well,
think like base, like the base of the model.
No, I did mean the base of the model, then base coats, in that order.
Yeah, I always do basing last, and I always put it off.
Basing happens first for my models. And it helps because even if you have a fully painted model with no basing, it looks unpainted to me. Like, I think it's weird. But if you have a based model with base coats on the model, they look painted. Not that I know about cheating or anything.
This is my problem. I enjoy playing too much. I'm like, ooh, I have new models, and you bloom all their bases, and you start playing, and you're like, okay, now I got to paint, and you paint the model, and you're like, well, I'll get to the base eventually.
Yeah, my problem is getting out of the house. Actually, like, yeah, I really want to play. I have to go down the street, and yeah, it's a horrible, horrible problem that I need to get over because it's completely my bad. I actually have to. I think the meta changed enough that all of the War Machine games actually take place on the opposite side of town from me now, so I have to go down there.
That was my next question: is how far is it actually to drive there?
Well, for me, the game store at this point is probably about 25 minutes away for War Machine games. If I wanted to play Maltho, it's like walking distance from my house. So, anyway, that doesn't mean anything, audience. So.
I don't know. I'm driving about 20 minutes to get to my local friendly gaming store.
Yeah?
Yeah, where I usually game.
Mandragora says, cool armor from the Rangers, obviously. Doubt it's comfortable. Actually, it is extremely comfortable. It was designed to have a lot of free movement, so that made it very comfortable for my Rangers costume.
It wasn't designed properly, though. Women's clothes are never designed to be comfortable, right?
Well, yeah, if you're going by that rule, I suppose so, but this was made and not purchased, so there's that. Flo, when was the last time you painted all day long? Shut up, Flo. By the way, I love you. Anyway, John Birkin, the hardest part about painting is just forcing myself to start. Yes, I agree. Once I do, I'm fine. Just getting that initial push is important. I've oftentimes compared both painting and playing to like going to the gym, which I know is kind of a weird example, but like, again, it's the motivation. You want to like kind of bail out of it for some really just base laziness reason, I guess, as far as wanting to start. But once you are there and you're playing, it's fine. Once you come back, you're glad to have gone. Like, it's a very, to me, it's a very applicable example, but obviously I should promote both more. Let me see. Mandragora, I need a community to paint, but the books are all I need to collect. Like Gorshade and Rhett right now. Oh my god, plot twist. Shh, yes, I know. So are you following much of what's going on in the lore of War Machine, Dan?
Nope. Never.
No?
The lore just never really does it for me. I'll like have little snippets here and there, and I'm like, oh, that's a fun story. Oh, that's cool. But it's just like, I don't know. Since J.R.R. Tolkien, every story is just inferior.
Oh my gosh, that's a horrible reason. I don't read anymore because I've read The Lord of the Rings.
No, okay, that really did sound snobby, didn't it? That's terrible. But it's just like, I don't get, like, I still like reading. Like, when the Haley 3 came out, it came with like a little book, and I read that book, and it was interesting. It wasn't anything amazing, but I'll like read it. But I don't get like into it. I don't get like passionate about it. I'm like, oh yeah, what happens next? What happens next? It's just like, it's like they're a wargaming hobby, and so they're like, they make the models, they make whatever, and the artwork, and it's like in the story on the side. It's like they're not primary storytellers; they're like secondary storytellers. So just by that fact, normally the stories are inferior to this like an actual novel that doesn't have any models to go with it. So that I don't know. I've just never really gotten into it, but a lot of people love it, and there's like a huge library of 40K fluff that you can get.
Oh yeah, the Black Library is
massive. Yeah.
And I mean, it keeps the game alive well beyond what the war game itself does. I think it's the Black Library that allows people to like be interested in the video games that come out of Warhammer.
I think partially I'm afraid to start reading 40K fluff because I'm gonna be like, you won't see me for a month.
Yes, it can be easy to binge. That's true. Mandragora says, hooray for paint. No, Ronald says, huzzah for painters. I agree. Thank goodness for them, because it is hard to do all. I guess there's three major aspects, right? There's like the hobby element of wargaming, there's gameplay element of wargaming, and there's the lore element of wargaming, which are all extremely valid reasons, despite what Dan's saying about his pretentious like view of wargaming lore. Are all valid reasons to be interested. And I think you always take a little bit from all of them, even if you don't, like, you probably weigh a little heavier in one or the other. or even just depending on like a phase of your life, you might weigh in more on one. Like if you don't have time to play, like I think Michael was saying earlier, like reading about it is a good way to kind of still feel connected to it. And then for me, again, talking about it, like talking about game mechanics or games with people is probably the most fun right now, actually. What else have we got here? Let's see, I have a primed galleon looking at me. Oh, sorry, Ronald, can't help you there.
So do I. Well, I hit him under the desk. So he's also in pieces.
Wow. Let's see here. Where did you get the glass case? You already answered that. Suggestions about tournaments is you could put air fresheners on a lanyard and give them out to players. That's kind of mean, though, right? Like, you're going to avoid the guy who's wearing an air freshener. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not going to help that much. You got to get
it's just going to ostracize the poor person. Let me see here. Ronald, I need a display case to put on myself. Maybe push me to paint more. Now, would you say that having your miniatures on display, both painted or unpainted, is a motivator to paint?
I say yes. So I like to play with unpainted models to the point where it's like, I'm like, okay, they're there. I want them to be painted now. It's like, I'm having fun with them. Next time I play with them, let's get some paint on them or something like that. So it's like I want to try it. Okay, they're cool. Now they deserve some paint. They killed some dudes on the board. They deserve some paint on them now or something like that.
I've totally done that. You've earned your paint job.
Right? So maybe I do get a narrative more than I think. But like on my desk, yeah, I just have it on there. And they're all painted and there's like some like sore thumbs of like metallic, like shiny, and you're like, I gotta get to you. So if they're just, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? So I mean, if you have your stuff that needs to get painted, but it's in your case, like in the corner, you're never gonna paint it unless you like, now it's time to paint, and you open it up and you put it out, whatever. You're never gonna think to paint them. I mean, maybe you were, but like if you have like an ongoing thing, but then you're not even having trouble painting, so it's fine. But if you are having trouble painting, having them in sight, I think will help.
Staring you down, like at the dinner table, like while you're eating your soup or something, you're like staring at these models, just I thought you cared.
Just place them randomly in different places. Right on your like nightstand. You like go down to sleep and they're just staring at you.
Have you ever been like bothered by that, where like you've kind of been up at night thinking about what you have to do for like painting or even like list preparation, perhaps?
So we just had Alberta's biggest event called GrotsCon. And I painted till 4 in.the morning trying to get everything done. And then I didn't even use
That's actually fun, though. That's actually fun.
Like, must get more stuff done. Oh, I need this done. And then I'm like, ooh, I like get in the groove of painting one model. I'm like, I just spent an hour and a half on this model. I have 20 more models to go. I can't do. I mean, I'm really proud of the model. I'm glad I painted that well. It's like, ooh, this is awesome. And then like it just really crappily painted some other ones just to get them on the table. But so yes, I have stayed up at night. Not so much worrying, but frantically painting. I think I painted over 100 points of War Machine in one night.
Oh, wow. I couldn't do that. I would need help, and then I would fall asleep anyway. Like, I can't go without sleep. I will fall asleep on tables. I will fall asleep on the floor. Like, it's bad. Let's see here. Twisted Bishop, can we ask those Winter Guard we can ask those Winter Guard a thing or two about being assaulted by tape measures? Yes, Miranda chips for models. It's a thing. Turns out I actually do like plastic and resin models because they don't chip that much. My poor war dog has like a silver ear again. The Winter Guard like banner standard bears. Like, I'm surprised that hasn't broken off because I never replaced it with a rod or anything. It's just the pewter, and so I've had to bend it back many a time. So yes, this is part of why I'm not a huge fan of like overly dynamic models, just because I personally am not nice. When I'm like, move the things, and I'm like, okay, he needs to go here, and crap. And I mean, the tape measures, they have a little tongue at the end, you know, where it sticks down, and that catches more things than you know. I mean,
especially when you like pick up a model with the tape measure.
What are you talking about? That's never happened.
And you're like, oh no.
And And in War Machine, it's worse because you're like, where did it go? Where was it? Ah, crap.
There's like this big metal model, and it's just like an elbow, and it's just like, you're like, oh, Cred's gonna murder everything.
No, for the big heavy models, the worry is like putting it on a hill, and you're like, okay, you get it on the hill, and you like prop it up on another die or something to keep it straight, but then something bumps that, and then he like falls. That's always like the scary part. Although I don't break my big models, only the little ones. I mean, I don't break anything. I'm super careful. Let's see here. Ronald Birkin. Yeah, I really should get something, but furniture purchases need wife's approval. Can't help you there. Commissar Gonza. Hey, welcome. You should actually leave. It's all about destroying your opponent off the table. No mercy. Ah, that's the spirit.
Murder everyone.
Murder them all. Hear the lamentation of the women and the children. Just the women, I guess.
That's what we want most in life.
IKEA are awesome for cheap cabinets. So New Mexico is a huge dust problem. I imagine most places do, but it's where I live, so I'm going to say New Mexico has a big dust problem. And it's better either to keep my minis in cases or in cabinets that, well, I don't really have like clear fancy pants cabinets. I just have like solid opaque like cabinets that I guess normal people might put food in. And I just shove all my miniatures in there. So that's where they live to stay dust free, because I agree. Keeping your minis out is nice, but you have the space factor and the cost factor. So.
You just get what was that case you reviewed recently? You just get some of those.
Yeah, that's true. Just like fill the whole wall in my dining room or something like that. Apparently, you could stack them pretty tall.
Yeah.
The problem with that though is if they're on display, then I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, here's my list for this tournament. I'm going to go down to the game store and drive my 25 minutes across town and then be like, where are these models? Huh. Excuse me.
But that's the best part, is when you show up at a tournament and you don't have the models you need, and you're like, okay, who's got what to spare? Or what do I have? And
that's
you like
true.
totally revamp, and you make it work.
No, I would actually love the idea of playing a game of like your worst versus my worst, like just taking the considered most garbage models of your given faction and building like a 35 or 50 point list from that and just slap fighting each other.
I've actually done that in a 40K game. We built each other's lists. I think it was Owen and I. It was me and Owen. We made lists of each other, and we could upgrade whatever we wanted. And he built a crappy like orc list, and I built a crappy Tau list for him to play. But he's like, hey, there's like 50 points of upgrades that don't even do anything. I was like, okay. But it was just like, definitely some armies suffer more than others in that way. But that's actually really fun. If you're like, have just a bunch of different models with some friends, you're just like, okay, this is what you have to work with, this is what you have to work with, and you just like upgrade useless, weird upgrades. Or like, everyone has a melting gun, it's so expensive and elite. And you're like, hopefully my opponent brings strong things for me to kill instead of like a bunch of infantry. And so you're kind of like, I don't know. You just like take some risks and whatever. And yeah, it's that's also a really fun way to spice things up.
I agree. Well, and it gives you variety, especially if you ended up collecting models that either used to be good or you thought were good when you bought them or whatever, right? And just getting to use models you don't get to use that much is nice.
You really have to play with like a very friendly game, though.
Well, yes, obviously, like one person's like, yeah, I'm preparing for GratzCon next week, and the other one's like, I just want to see what these Cossack woodsmen do. Like, it's gonna be terrible, but
I'm just saying, if you're playing with, you're building each other's lists. I mean, it's not. You don't want to be nice. You want to build the dirtiest, terrible list ever, because that's what the other person's gonna do. So you're both ruthless. And you're like, what the crap is this? But then, same thing happened the other way.
Have you ever done a game where you have your opponent build your list for you?
Yeah, that was that. Yeah.
Oh, that is that. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So we built each other's lists, and
yes.
I mean, while they built my list and they built their own list too. I don't think I've ever done that. I have played way up in points by accident. I had gone through some stressful things the day previous, and I just wasn't whatever. And I'm like building my list. And I played and marked to a 62-point list against a 50-point list. and still almost lost. And it was filmed on a battle report for all the world to see. And
That's the best.
yeah, and that guy, he lives in Buffalo, and he still harasses me about it sometimes. I will never live it down, ever.
Well, I still can't live down that Hammersmith list, so whatever.
That was a great list.
The next time you and I are going to be able to play against each other will be Valhalla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to. Yeah, we haven't played against each other in a long time. We played with each other. We're on the same team.
Yeah, we played Orcs. That was pretty fun. That was really good. Ronald says, how big is the meta in New Mexico? Well, New Mexico's always kind of struggled with a relatively small meta. I think right now, on average, we're looking at 5-6 players. Last I checked, and I haven't gone in a while, so like I need to get down there and contribute to that. I think at the biggest we had 12 to 15 people or something like that. New Mexico loves 40K and Infinity. Like huge groups of people come together for that, and X-Wing, I should say. But like War Machine, that one's hard. It's a hard sell for a lot of people. Damien, we love Dan. Well, it's good someone does.
Yay!
Wargamer Online. I keep missing your chats.
I love you too, Damien.
Dan, where do you play? If you want to share.
Where do I play?
Ronald.
Around.
All
over. There's a place called the Century Box in Calgary. I also play at Imaginary Wars, and sometimes I'll travel out of town to play.
Carmine asks,
Calgary.
how do I get my friends to play War Machine? Just lose all of the games against them over and over.
Try to find some models they like. That's really what it is. It's like you just gotta like the models you're playing with.
That's true. In fact, that's actually one of the biggest reasons, if you care about growing your meta, in my opinion, the biggest reasons to painting your models. Because if you're walking around a game store and you happen to have had a bad game, or you're looking for another game, or what have you, you're going to walk by the table that just has boring silver miniatures, even if they're big, because you're like, I can't, nothing there, it doesn't look like anything. It's a blob of metal, or a blob of gray, or whatever you primed it. Like, if they're painted and really good-looking miniatures and you use real terrain, then it's going to be a very inviting thing to want to watch, and then you want to learn about it, and suddenly you're talking about it, and you're learning about these cool factions, and you learn a little bit about the lore, maybe, and it is way easier to get people interested in that than saying, well, here's this rule, and as one of my friends had described it after walking away from War Machine, he was interested in Circle for a while. He described it as a game of sledgehammers, and it is. It's a very brutal game, so you don't start off with that generally. You got to start with whatever people are generally interested in. And yeah, I'm sure there's some who are like, oh, I want the game of sledgehammers, but that's probably not most of them. So, thoughts on that, Dan? Or you're just going to agree with me? Because I'm totally right.
You're so right, Miranda.
I know.
You have never been more right. When you're right, you're right. And you're right.
Oh my gosh, there's so many people. I love this. Let's see here. I got a blister on my ribs from my TK costume this weekend.
TK costume?
Cool. TK. What does TK do, man?
TK. Let's look at Urban Dictionary. What is TK?
That's like the worst place to. All right, we're moving on. Oh, wow. I lost it in the comments. If you had to marry either an orc or a chaos marine, what would you do? Neither, because I live in the first world.
That's a tough one.
Orcs or chaos is horrible. Like, chaos will swallow you whole. You have to worry about the warp. I feel like an orc would be easier to distract or like send away or have kill in your name or something.
They can also be redeemed. No.
What, chaos marines?
Yeah, it's like you marry them for their potential.
Oh, and then I change them? Is this serious?
There's no hope with the orc.
Worst sell ever. All right, wow. I think that went as far as that's going to go. Used to be regular at DragonCon and WorldCon. We regularly send out reminders to the fans to take showers before hitting the floors. People forget. Well, maybe some people are excited. Just going to play devil's advocate on that, even though I'm personally kind of sensitive to the BO effect myself. Let me see here. I definitely prefer 30K over 40K characters, says Zach. Horus Heresy stuff? Yes, although aren't the Sisters of Silence all 30K now? Like, I think they look weird.
Well, I totally agree with Commissar Gamza of the playing with your model. Playing games motivates you to play your models. Finish your models.
Especially when they've, like, murdered a bunch of things for you. Yeah. And they've earned their paint job, as we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes, exactly. The Warp Forge, currently painting Spider-Man models. Nice.
All my circle are in a glass case. They're painted. Proof. Putting them in a glass case helps you paint them. That's irrefutable proof. There's no other reason that they're painted. It's because they're in the case. If you want to paint your models, just buy a case.
That's the cure. We've solved it.
Instant paint.
You're welcome, audience. Wow. I think I would just have like a bunch of boxes inside my clear case to be like, I need to assemble that. I still have a Victor that really needs to be assembled, and I'm even excited about doing that. Whereas I could say the same about a certain Night Titan. Anyway, Commissar. I like to see an army that matches rather than gray models on the table. I agree. Gray models, just, you know.
It's worth losing a game. When you lose a game to someone who is just completely unpainted stuff, and you're like, come on.
If you play War Machine, you're pretty used to that. I mean, War Machine, like as a total stereotype, so not to throw that everybody's under that bus, but there's a lot of War Machine players who habitually never painted their models because they spent all their time playing and practicing. So it kind of was it was a danger if you saw like unpainted models. You're like, you might have practiced a lot. I don't know. Or maybe they put it together at the game store right before you started playing. That has also happened. So it's annoying to lose to that just because, I don't know, it feels kind of low effort in a way. I don't know. Ronald, let me see here. Well, 12 Neef, which, welcome. The Imperial Guard got me into the books, particularly Gaunt's Ghosts. I'm not too familiar with that. I actually got a whole bunch of 40K stuff of the Black Library on Humble Bundle like a month ago.
Like digital copies?
Huh? Yeah,
like
digital copies. But there's, I don't know, 15 plus books or something. So I'm like, oh, cool, I can get started. And then I literally just have to still load it onto like my tablet or some place where I can read it because despite being a homebody, I'm not actually home very much. So it's really hard to like sit anywhere and read. But that's my problem and I need to fix it. Let's see, Ronald, I have fond memories of 40K. I was a Blood Angels player, sold them off a while ago. Still got my Empire models for Warhammer Fantasy. Guess it's Age of Sigmar now. Yeah, well.
You can play that thing.
You like it or you hate it, I guess. And the fantasy models are usable in Sigmar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so at least there's that. At least it's not like, well, throw them away.
But I just attended I played the War Machine, but there were people playing the custom made rules for fantasy. A lot of people having a really good time. So fantasy still does live for those diehards.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people who were really upset about Age of Sigmar, from what I understand, kind of split off and did that or changed games. Again, like here in New Mexico, our Malifaux crew, our Malifaux meta, like burst out of Age of Sigmar starting because all of the fantasy players just rejected it. So, and I don't even know how much Age of Sigmar even gets played here locally. Like, I haven't seen it. Again, it's X-Wing, it's Infinity, and 40K. So, and then a little bit of War Machine.
When I hear Age of Sigmar started off slow, but it's getting a lot of traction. A lot of people love it.
I just remember the wailing and gnashing of teeth. Mandragora, all my chibi are in a queue and they remain unpainted, along with my Zombicide, Black Plague, and most of my vermin. Like, vermin. Well, I don't know. I never cared for chibi models, so I probably would never paint them anyway. Zombicide stuff, that's just a lot of models. Zombicide's a fun game, though, and having painted models. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we're playing Zombicide again at Valhalla?
Yeah, we should be able to. I should be able to get a copy of that game if no one else brings it. Let's see. How do you feel? Let me see. Ryan says, so do you feel tournaments that require painted models helped keep you getting things done, or do they make you not want to play in those tournaments? Actually, I think painting requirements in tournaments are good, personally. It's because part of... Go ahead.
That's like half the reason I paint.
Well, yeah. One, it does motivate you to get it done. And as a game company, you want people showing off their painted models because that's like advertising and selling for you. And in a tournament, if somebody's walking by, again, if they just see a sea of silver models, like they're not going to care. They're not going to be invested in what's going on. So I think it makes sense from the business side, but it also just makes sense in that you kind of feel a little more accomplished in having like painted up your models for this. And some people just don't get motivated unless there's like a fire under them to do it, like me. So, you know, it's good. It's good.
I need someone light a fire under me so I can film some battle reports. My butt is far too cold.
That's right. Fire keeps you warm. Let's see. 12. Neef says Armor of Contempt. Oh, okay. So you're talking about the Black Library stuff. I can't help you there.
What Hangout are we on right now? What number?
What? Hangout 28.
We're on 28.
Reasonably sure we're on 28.
Oh, okay.
That's what I named it yesterday. Warpforge, the chipping. Oh, lordy, the chipping. Yes, that is the downside to metal models. Well, and the weight. I did get my War Machine case pretty heavy at one point. Like, it would indent my shoulder and stuff when I was walking around with it for a while. It was not comfortable. So, yeah. It didn't. It just made me sore. Because it's not like I'm just carrying it on my shoulder. It's just a weight down. It's not like I'm holding it with my beefy little arms. So that didn't work out.
Lost opportunity.
Zach asks another interesting question. Can there be too much lore? Honestly, that's what's kept me from 40K for so long. Really. It can be hard to figure out where to start, but they kind of have things separated out. I know I've read, like, I bought the 2 novels of, like, just the Sisters of Battle. Was it Faith and Fire and the other one that I'll remember later. But either way, like, you can kind of pick stuff out. So I think if you're looking at all of the books, it's just one big wall. If you come in a little closer, you can probably find like just specific characters you may be interested in. Or I know a lot of people start off with the Horus Heresy, although I think that's become a rather large library too. So
I think it's like having a massive amount of unpainted models. Like the more you have, the more daunting it is, and the more paralyzed you feel. If you just start, I'm sure it gets good. But you know my opinion, just ignore it. It's fine. Just rely on your friends to tell you fun stories from the lore. You're like, oh, that's cool. I like that.
Well, and that's true. If you're talking to other people who know the lore, then they can probably direct you somewhere good. They'll have a favorite or whatever. Or maybe you'll happen to meet one of the authors at like a convention and you could start there. But I suppose just starting anywhere, you can move from there and within it. I wouldn't try to read the Black Library in a straight linear pattern. Let's see here. I find playing on those neoprene game mats help to protect against chipping, even metal models. Yes, on the bottom, that's fine, but I'm talking about when you're whacking things with your tape measure, or you're slamming models into each other, or you may drop one. I'm just saying, Michael, there's complications to this.
I remember when I dropped a metal iron or Stormclad. So it's like a warjack with a big long sword and a shield, and it's all metal, and it's just like, I'm like, and I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'2", and I'm like looking at him, and I'm just like, I just forgot how to do things, and it fell, and it was just like the slow motion, and then it like bends the metal and chips the paint off at the same time, and you're like, I don't even know how to bend that back, it's so thick, and it's like, that's underneath, it's fine. Just paint my other.
I will say, as far as assembly goes, Gorilla Glue is mean. I haven't used it on my models, but I had a friend of mine at the game store who played Trolls, and he had, I think it was a Troll Bomber, and he put it together with Gorilla Glue, and it was a metal, like, old school model, right? He freaking drops it, and it just falls and, like, doesn't go anywhere. Like Gorilla Glue will bulletproof your models essentially. So, fun fact. Although you have to wait a long time for that to set. So.
Another fun fact: a friend lost the arms to the bomber, so he just had his hands, and so his hands are just really stubby on the bomber. And so there's this big old troll with these stubby little arms carrying big barrels, and it's like, how do you throw them? You just like spin around. Anyways,
wow, I personally applaud his efforts. He seems to have really overcome. Ronald says, Ryan, I do think tournaments that require painting does help. It is what prompted me to start my painting craze. I decided to go into an IG and had 2 weeks to paint up 3 lists. So I'm guessing Iron Gauntlet. Man, it was crazy. Yes, that's exactly kind of the frenzy of doing that. And if you have a painting requirement, it can help kind of keep you honest about like the models you're wanting to kind of have in that list, because you're only going to paint those. Carmine says, I try to get people into playing Warmahordes by getting them to watch Miranda's old bat reps. They're the coolest. Oh, this is great. I'm going to read the rest of this comment. It's provocative. And gets people going. Would you be making new ones soon? Yes, they are being worked on. I'm trying to figure out ways beyond fighting over circles and rectangles and flags. Neef says, yes, Miranda has to deal with all the traffic like us New Yorkers. Nope, that's why I live in New Mexico, so I don't have to deal with awful traffic all the time.
Okay. So some people are commenting on how Orcs are like terrible right now. They're hilarious, but they're just bad, and everyone's excited for 8th edition for Orcs to shine, but I don't know if they will. I'm having my doubts. I hope they will, but close combat seems tricky in 8th. With being able to leave combat and stuff, but you get to hit first if you charge. I don't know. We don't have enough information. But I'm not sold that Orcs are going to be super amazing yet.
Well, I mean, it all comes back down to the codexes, I thought, every time. Like, it's just going to be whoever gets...
they're releasing all the codexes at the same time. So I think they'll be relatively balanced, but it's just like the play style. And it seems right now, with limited information that we have, that shooting is going to be super powerful still and dominate. If Overwatch is still a thing.
I don't know. I'll have to see. I'm curious to get started in 8th. I think that'll be... I'm gonna jump back in both feet.
No, I'm definitely gonna bring out the Orcs, dust them off. Yeah, it's the shooty Orcs that will be fun, and not the close combat choppy Orcs, which I love. I want to just bash people's faces in, just reach across the table and just imagine. Like, DACA is great. DACA is awesome, but DACA only works as you're charging to try to chop his head off. Like, there's an Orc biker. And he's got these massive twin-link DAC cannons, and just like blah, 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 blah. But he's driving as fast as he can to run into somebody and jump off and chop their head off. That's the Orc inside of everybody. So
yeah, that'd be fun.
When the only good Orc is a shooting Orc, it just seems hollow. It makes me sad.
Any chance you're going to lock and load this year, sir?
No, none whatsoever.
There's technically a chance, but I don't know. I don't know yet. We'll have to see. But yeah, a couple people here are going to be going to Lock and Load, which is cool. I think the Grimkin release is going to be happening there. Are you guys picking up Grimkin while you're there?
I love their models. Oh my goodness. I didn't think I liked their models, and then I saw them painted up and newer, and I was like, oh my goodness. They're so cool.
Yes, Twisted. I hope that they're plastic sisters eventually too, now that I've got pretty much all the sisters I need. Oh well. Let's see here. We need to kind of get through this. Oh my goodness. So many people painting models. Wow, that was a lot. A lot of people, mostly, I guess the biggest struggle from the looks of it is just getting your stuff painted.
If you're bored, paint your models. If you're too bored to paint your models, well, paint your models.
And once you get a neck ache from that, read the novels. Or you can watch the Space Marine movie. That was so amazing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You need to find artistic friends and have them paint your models with you.
Or for you. Hello?
I mean, it's a little easier to convince. I mean, I had a friend who had his little sisters paint his models for like 5 cents a model or something. It's just like full on slave labor. It's like, he's like, paint my horse, whatever. And he's like some wood elves. And they come back and like the paint wasn't like, he's like, no, the white, you have to do another layer. That's not good enough. He just like sends them back. His poor little sisters. He's like, you paint nails, you know how to do this. Yeah, go paint them. Oh, it was so funny.
Well, somebody got really good experience.
But seriously, yeah, it's not as hard as you think to find people if you're like among those kind of like artsy people or whatever, to be like, hey, you want to try painting like a model, and you just like find one that appeals to them in some way and you paint them. And sure, they're not going to do the greatest job sometimes they do a better job than you, but it's just like they get paint on them.
This is fair. Apparently Mark J says that you need to be back at Mini Wargaming because there's not enough WOG on that channel anymore.
It's true. Quirk just doesn't do it justice. I mean, I do like Quirk, but he thinks Ludas have 2 wounds.
Oh my god. Poor man's never gonna live that down.
Forever.
Gamza, well, I had my old metal demon prince fall off a table and it basically exploded when it hit the ground. I had to carefully bend his sword back into place. I'm sure Korn was laughing. The problem with dropping a model, though, is you can pretty much see it happening in slow motion, and everybody's just sort of like the whole time, and then it just explodes because nobody actually spent the time to catch it. But
recommendation: work on your foot-eye coordination.
Yeah, hacky sack it back up.
Well, just if you kick it sideways. Because it's going down like this, and if you just kick it sideways, it'll like skid and maybe still be bad, but not nearly as bad. I do that with my phone all the time. It's like, what? You just kick it, and it skids instead of bashing. You know? I don't know. I've gotten better at it over the years.
Oh my goodness.
You just have to have that twitch ready. You're like, well, man, you know. It's an important skill to master.
Yeah, no, I drop stuff all the time, like just in my general life. It's actually done wonders for my reaction time. Alrighty, well, we need to finish this up here. Let me see. Painting in groups. Yes, that's what Miranda loves delegation. I'm just gonna say that much. Let me see here. Wargamer Online, yeah, they're painting a bunch of stuff as well. Okay, painting. Is this what keeps you guys motivated, or is this what keeps you from being motivated? I'm not actually sure is the answer to this. I
think it's just what everyone unifiedly lacks motivation for.
That's fair.
I think it's the most time-consuming because like you can spend like 20 hours painting a cool army and then play like with it for 2 hours, and then you don't get to play for another month for like a couple hours. So it's like. Painting is one of those like high commitment.
Painting isn't that high commitment.
It's just time commitment.
Sort of, but you can actually so to me, when I see painting, like if you can have a dedicated spot or if it's just not that much trouble to go back to it, you can paint for 20 minutes and then leave and then come back the next day and paint for 20 minutes. You cannot do that with play or gameplay. Like you could do that with reading and you could do that with painting, albeit to a lesser extent, but you can do it. Whereas if you're playing, that's the time commitment. That's where you have to sit down and you're there for a couple hours at least. So that's harder. Just saying.
Fair enough.
Miranda, have you read any of the War Machine novels? If so, how are they? Yes, I read the one with Catherine Lattimore. It was fine. I think the books are probably a little more detailed and interesting than like what you read in the No Quarters, but I actually really like the No Quarters, so... They now have started all of their Skull Island expedition stuff, and I haven't started on that. And not for lack of wanting, that they're basically doing their own Black Library, and so they've already come out with oodles of books where I'm like, this is okay, I'm gonna have to pick and choose here. So, not as much as I could, but actually, I know you don't see a lot on my channel, but I actually do a lot of stuff. Brian. Oh, hey, Brian. Okay, I think we got to stop it here. We're already a bit over time. Thank you guys so much. I love the audience participation. Keep staying engaged in the hobby. Apparently, keep painting your models. If you can't paint your models, read about your models. If you can't read about your models, talk about your models. And if all else fails, just put on your big boy pants and go play anyway.
No, we should do. We should have people send in their paint jobs, and then are extremely unqualified. We should have opinions on them, and either make fun of them or compliment them at our leisure.
Make fun of them?
Well,
that's really going to encourage people. They call me the mean one.
Where can they send their pictures to, Miranda?
All right, fine.
I think this will be hilarious.
Fine. Post your stuff. Put it on the WarGamerGirl Facebook. That way everybody can see it. And Dan may or may not actually get around to posting on it, and I'll make him do it because you started this. And yeah, we will totally give you guys feedback for, let's say, the next week. Solid week from now. So what is today? Today's the 17th. So you have until 24th. If you post by then, we'll comment on every single one of them. And normally I do anyway.
I'll have something negative to say about each and every one.
He will be a total jerk, and I'll be honest. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all. We love you. We'll see you in 2 weeks. When is that? That's the 31st. It's the end of the month. Oh, my goodness.
Fancy that.
Yeah. All right. Well, bye, everybody. Love you.